sir. Well, welcome everybody to the Gwinnett Entrepreneur Center. My name is Greg Goebel. I'm the center specialist here. Whether you're joining us online, you're joining us in person, welcome. We're glad you're here. Stephanie Sokanis is our center manager. She's here, and so on behalf of our team, we want to welcome you. And we even have some folks who just walked in today and found out we had a workshop. So welcome. If you're brand new to the center, please do stay after, and we're happy to introduce you to all the programming and the community of business owners and entrepreneurs here. So welcome everybody. We'll tell you a little bit about the Entrepreneur Center. We are sponsored by Gwinnett County. We are in partnership with Georgia Gwinnett College, and we're here for entrepreneurs and small businesses. We support small businesses through classes, workshops, groups, networking, and coaching, all offered at no cost. And you're experiencing one of our workshops now. And again, if you're joining us online, welcome. We're glad you're joining us. We have a lot of events going on here throughout the month. We send out an email every month letting people know what's coming up, and we put out a flyer. So if you haven't subscribed to our emails, please let us know and we can do that, or check in. If you're joining us online, you can check in at the link that we provided in the chat feature. Starting a Business Roundtable is coming up, for example, March 4th at 2:00 p.m. The registration for those opens about 2 weeks before the event, and that's a roundtable with our mentor, Dave, to talk through starting a business here in this room in the training room. We also offer Spanish classes in Spanish in partnership with Prospera, and those classes happen throughout the year, and they offer classes all over the Atlanta region in Gwinnett County. And we have one coming up March 11th, preparing for your taxes in 2025. I only say that in English. Sometimes people hear us say what it's about in English, and they think that somebody's going to be here speaking English, but it's all in Spanish. Those classes are coming up, and that one is March 11th at 2:00 p.m. This coming Monday at the Norcross branch of the Gwinnett County Public Library, we'll be having the Small Business Book Club, our second meeting for the book process, so join us for that. We will be reading books throughout the year, small business books, and we cover a lot of different topics from organizing your business to marketing to customer service and even accounting all throughout the year. Discuss the books and apply them to your business. In March, we'll be meeting for the Small Business Collective, which is our small business group, and networking events, March 5th and March 19th. Those groups meet the first and third Wednesdays of every month in this room with business owners and entrepreneurs sharing ideas, meeting each other, passing on leads, and forming a great small business community. Again, if you have any questions about that, please see us afterwards, and we're happy to answer those questions. If you are participating today via video, please use the chat feature for general comments. But if you have a question for our presenter, which he'll take either throughout or at the end, Q&A at his discretion, but please do put those in the question and answer, the Q&A feature. That allows us to keep track of those questions. Otherwise, they get buried in the chat and we're not able to necessarily track those. So please use the Q&A feature. Now I want to tell you a little bit about our presenter, Austin Thompson. He's the city council member for Lawrenceville, has a background in business consulting, engineering, and government service. A lot of commas in there. He served on the Architectural Review Board, the Lawrenceville Neighborhood Alliance, and Lawrenceville 2040 Steering Committee. With over 25 years of experience as an EMI electronic engineer specializing in regulatory compliance, he also has expertise in senior project management and business development. In addition to his government and business roles, he's worked as an adjunct professor of undergraduate business and holds an MBA in management and a Master of Project Management. So thank you so much for spending this afternoon with us. We'll just turn it over to you, and I'll hand you the baton here.
Whoops, that's all right.
Throw it out here.
That's what happens when we're live.
Right.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And for those of you joining us from the virtual world, good afternoon to you as well. I like to know that I'm speaking also to our virtual audience, and I'm not just addressing those in here, because I want to make sure that you all feel inclusive and welcomed into this discussion, because this is important to you as well. So good afternoon to you as well. For those of you who are here, thank you so much for coming out. Yes, this is what I love to do. I have an extensive background in business and engineering and project management, entrepreneurship. But I think what I love best is teaching. What I love best is sharing information. What I love best is sitting down with entrepreneurs and discussing with them their vision for their businesses and their vision and their passion for entrepreneurship, right? Because small businesses create jobs in this country, right? Small businesses are the backbone of the American economy. Okay, 32 million small businesses in this country. That's what creates the jobs, that helps the economic engine to go, right? So I'm glad to be a part of processes and programs like this that help to, continue the education of our small business community. Me as an independent consultant, I sit in workshops just like you're sitting in workshops, because there are a lot of things I like to learn, in order to strengthen my own intellect and my capacity as a consultant, but also for just educational purposes, right? So thank you all for coming today. What we're gonna do is, we're gonna talk about strategies for revenue growth in 2025. And when we think strategies in 2025, we're thinking strategies to generate revenue in 2025, right? What do we need to do to strategically plan to grow revenues in 2025? All of it, marketing, operations, looking at where we can streamline, in order to drive that bottom line, right? Because it's all about maximizing the top line, maximizing revenues, minimizing and keeping in check your expenses so that you can have a healthy bottom line, right? So all of these things we're going to look at. Let me see if I can move away from. Yeah, okay. I don't want you guys to stare at the picture of me all afternoon, All right. So real quickly, I've got Miss Nancy. I spoke to Miss Nancy earlier, but you ladies here, we have ladies back there, this group here that walked in. Just quickly, 30 seconds. What do you do?
Sorry, I'm coming.
No, that's cool. That's great.
Hi, I'm Andrea Mojica. I work for Brett Moser. He owns Brett Moser Construction Engineering and Aquabella.
Okay.
My name is Laura. I'm the marketing intern for the Gwinnett Entrepreneur Center, and I study marketing at Georgia Gwinnett College.
Excellent.
My name is Nafritha, and I'm a real estate agent here in Gwinnett County, and I also started a small business. It's called Seeing Me First, about self-development and growth.
All right, so we've got construction, marketing, real estate, and
My name is Hakeem Nickerson. I'm here as a brand ambassador for my own clothing brand called Righteous Nation.
Nice. So Gus?
My name is Gus Maddox, and I'm a mentor. I opened up Golden Child Business and Services, which I mentor K through 8th graders, and I'm also a mentor in the University Systems of Georgia.
Excellent.
My name is Geraldo Rodriguez. I actually own a small window tinting company. We do residential, commercial, automotive, vinyl lettering, and stuff of that nature.
Excellent.
All right, my name is Sadia Aideen. I own my own mobile bartending business.
Nice. Your name again?
Sadia.
Okay. I spoke to someone 2 weeks ago from Operation Hope doing the same thing. All right.
Amazing.
Okay, cool. Miss Nancy?
Nancy Severa. I own single family homes, and I rent them out and want to look to do something different with them.
All right, great. So all of you are from diverse backgrounds, right? You come from different spaces as small business owners. But the most important thing that's important to you when you wake up every morning is, how am I going to drive revenue? How am I going to drive success for my business, right? Because that's the one common thing that as entrepreneurs we have in common. How are we going to drive business? How are we going to drive revenue for our businesses, right? I found this quote by Jack Welch. He is the former CEO of GE General Electric, considered one of the smartest men in corporate America. Had several top managers for his company that went on to be successful CEOs at other companies, right? When I worked at Home Depot Corporate, Bob Nardelli was one of Jack Welch's top managers at GE. He went on, he served as CEO of Home Depot for about 5 years, and then went on and was CEO of Chrysler, right? So this quote here, good business leaders create a vision, right? vision is long-term. Where do you see your business? Where do you see your operations? Where do you see yourselves in your industry and in your marketplace, right? And that's all driven by what are you doing, right? Your mission, the purpose, and the reason why you have that business. Where do you see your business, 5, 10 years from now, right? Good business leaders create a vision, right? Articulate the vision, be able to articulate the vision, be able to describe your vision and the reasons why you're in business and where do you see yourself long term. Passionately own the vision and relentlessly drive it to completion, okay? And that's what we're doing for this year, 2025. We're talking about strategy, right? Strategy growth, strategy planning for revenue growth in 2025. It's predicated on the vision that you have for your business and how you look to expand it, how you look to scale, and how you look to move through these next 4 quarters. We're halfway through Q1, but how we're looking to move through the next 3.5 quarters and growing revenues for our business. But not just 2025, but we also want to, somewhere around the end of Q3, beginning of Q4, we want to already start thinking 2026, right? And start preparing ourselves for the new year. But right now, we're talking about 2025 and what we're going to do. By show of hands, real quick, how many of you have put a strategy plan together for 2025? Honestly. Okay. All right. So hopefully after today, you'll be even more encouraged to have your strategy plan for 2025, right? Because we have to know where we're going this year in 2025 because there's a lot of economic changes, a lot of changes to our economy and things, and we're going to go over some of that. So there's different types of planning. You have business planning. Business planning is more long-term. Business planning is more of a roadmap of where you're taking your business and incorporates operations and marketing, incorporates your technology plan, your strategy plan, your vision, your mission, your goals, and also your financials, your P&L, balance sheets, cash flow statements, so on and so forth. And it's usually done over 3 to 5 years. And there are 2 reasons why you do a business plan. Either you're using it for yourself, you're self-funding your business, you're putting 100% equity into your business, or you're looking to go to a financier, like a bank or some sort of funding source, to angel investor, right, to get funding, to government agencies to get funding for your business. Your strategic plan is mostly, like what we're going to be talking about today, deals more with how you're planning, how you're strategizing, right? What things are you putting into place? How are you streamlining? How are you taking things out of place that are not going to help you generate that revenue that you're looking to generate, right? Where do we look to focus on marketing, right? So it's a more narrower focus, but it's still a large scale because with strategy planning, it's not necessarily, if you're a solopreneur, if you're independent, of course you're doing it by yourself or you may be working with a consultant, but as a company where you have other managers and employees, it's great to have everybody involved in strategy planning. Also with the goals that you're looking to roll out for the year, goals and the mission, making sure your mission is specific and making sure everyone is focused on the mission and the mission is aligned across the board, right? Your marketing plan focuses on marketing, right? How you're advertising, how you're promoting, how you're exposing the business in the marketplace. What tools do you have to use in order to market and promote your business and get yourself the exposure that you need, right? And building the budget around it. Your operations plan deal with operations, HR, right? Equipment, assets, software, right? Anything that will help to optimize and drive the operations of your business forward successfully, okay? That's operations planning. And then you have feasibility studies, a feasibility analysis. Let's say, for instance, you're going through the cycle, the lifespan of a business, and you're established, you're ready to expand. You want to expand either services or product lines. You may want to expand geographically, open up another location, right? What you want to do is now do a feasibility study or a feasibility analysis, because what's the feasibility of adding this new product line or this new service or expanding to this new location, right? Is the market ready for my product? Is the market ready for my service, right? So you're doing a feasibility analysis, and that also is another form of planning because you want to understand the feasibility of success of that new product or that new service in the marketplace, all right? So there are different types of planning, but today we'll be focused more on strategic planning, determining your strategy moving forward. Now, the one thing I like to encourage those who participate in the workshops that I facilitate, or even my own clients, I say you have to be a student of business, right? Now, you don't need a PhD in economics, you don't need a PhD in accounting or a PhD in business, or in any one of the business disciplines, right? But as an owner or a senior manager of a business, you have to understand certain things about running a business. Economic activity, right? Understanding small business activity and trends. What's trending in the small business market, right? What's trending? What's new to small businesses? What's new to help small businesses drive success, right? So some of these things we have to look at. Funding opportunities and access to capital, which is always the crutch, right? Is the access to capital, right? Having that money to finance our operation and giving us the working capital that we need in order to drive successfully forward, right? And then, minority contracting certifications. Sometimes, we think about government contracting, right? So we're doing business with different non-government clients. We want to be able to contract with our county government, with our state, federal, get federal contracts as a minority, whether you're a black-owned business, a woman-owned business, a veteran-owned business, so on and so forth. When you're classified as a disadvantaged business, you can go and you can get certified as a minority-owned business. So what that does, it helps you now open up to other opportunities for at least 1 to 2% set-asides by the government that look at you. These are contracts that are set aside for minority contractors. So that helps. So that adds another revenue stream to your business, right? The government contracting. So these are some of the things that we want to look at real quickly, and we're gonna talk a little bit through them. Indicators of economic health, right? So we want to look at the economic health. We want to look at how healthy is the economy now, and how healthy the economy will be in the next 2 to 3 quarters, right? Going through the year. All right, so some economic indicators, there's some barometers that we look at as business managers, business owners, organizations. They use indicators as a barometer as how successful the economy is going to behave and how they're going to strategize for the year in growing revenues and growing services and meeting their market, right? So GDP, gross domestic product, is a measure of the nation's output, goods and services, the output of goods and services, and that could be quarterly, that could be annually, right? So we look at GDP as a barometer, right? Right now, GDP is 1.9%, and expanded over the last quarter. There's going to be a slight drop off to about 1.8% when I looked at the stats. I got that information from the Congressional Budget Office of the United States government. Again, GDP is one barometer. Purchasing power, that's the power of the dollar, right? The purchasing power of the dollar. What is the value of a dollar 5 years ago? What could you get for $1? What could you get for $50 or $100 5 years ago versus what you get for them now, right? You look at eggs. We use eggs because eggs just happen to be, all over the media right now, right? A carton of eggs was like what, $1.49, maybe 5 years ago. Now you're seeing 6, 10, 13, depending upon, if you want cage-free eggs versus regular eggs, that kind of thing. So the purchasing power right now is at 31.5, and it's a number that indicates the power of the dollar, right? Purchasing power, we use purchasing power to determine how much can a consumer buy for $1, right? How much money or how much value do we see in that dollar that creates the purchasing power for that consumer, right? That they're able to spend. GDP, we use that to determine the output of goods and services. If we see GDP expanding, then we know that the nation is a little bit healthier, right? There's goods and services, we're moving goods and services. That means that things are being manufactured, demand is up, right? Once demand is up, people have more money, there's more money in the economy, right? Unemployment, right now is at 4%. It was 4.1%, it's like 0.1% higher in December 2024. That's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But what are we seeing now in the U.S.? We're seeing a lot of people getting laid off, right? A lot of jobs being eliminated, a lot of people being laid off. So we don't know what the unemployment rate is going to look like, you know, a month from now, right? 2 months from now, 3 months from now. So we have to keep an eye on these things, because the more people we have employed, that's more money we have in the economy, right? Because that's more discretionary income people have to spend, right? So we want to look at these things, especially if you're, you know, you're real estate, you know, restaurants, cafes, you're in hospitality. You depend on disposable income. You depend on that having that cash for people to spend, right? So we want to be able to look at those. Those are just some of the barometers that we look at. The other thing, retail, right? If people are buying, you know, like when you look at Black Friday sales, right? You're looking at Black Friday, Shop Saturday, Cyber Monday. Every year, those sales seem to be going up. More and more people spending money, right? More people spending on money online on e-commerce spaces than there are in bricks and mortars, right? But $6,519 billion in 2021 to $7,041 billion in 2022, an 8% increase. We saw that increase there, and projected to go up. This is the Bureau of the Census Bureau. So we're seeing retail sales continuously increase, right? More people are spending money. Retail, whether they're shopping in a bricks and mortar, they're physically walking into a store, or they're going online and shopping, right? Consumer debt stands at $17.9 trillion right now. We see the retail growth over those 2 years. I couldn't find data for 23, and of course 24, you usually don't get data for 24 until the end of the following year. But again, you can look at retail sales, right? You can look and see, okay, are people shopping? Do people have money to shop, right? If people are spending, if unemployment rate holds low, right? If the purchasing power is high, meaning you have more money, you can get more for your dollar, the value of the dollar, you can get more for your dollar. Also, if you're looking at manufacturing, right? U.S. manufacturing is expected to increase by 2.8%, right? 1224 to 1225 is the National Association of Manufacturers outlook. Now, I can tell you as a regulatory compliance engineer, when the economy is contracted, meaning companies are not manufacturing, my business suffers, right? The technology industry crash, right? The housing industry crash, right? COVID, I've been a victim of all three, right? Because manufacturing was like almost, especially during COVID, right? Where socially distancing meant you stay at home, operations came to a screeching halt. Remember when shipping containers were held up at the ports? None of it was getting offloaded and getting to the labs or the manufacturing sites. So, you know, we see those things happening, right? So, but when there's demand, you know, when the economy is good and there's demand, you see manufacturing increasing, right? Hospitality, right? You can also look at hospitality, especially for those of you who are in the restaurant, cafe business, anything dealing with hospitality. We're looking at the occupancy rate. How much money do people have? Are people traveling as much, right? Do consumers have money, disposable income, right, or cash to travel? At what rate are they traveling, right? So we look at, you know, I looked at the hotel occupancy rate averaging about 64% in 2025. 2029 was like about a percentage point higher, you know, lower now. But, you know, we have to track that. If the percentages go up, you know, then we know, hey, people are traveling, people are staying in hotels. And it's funny because when I was looking at a report, the higher the occupancy rate, man, the average daily rate per room was lower. So we saw more people renting hotels, right? Renting hotel rooms, and vice versa, the other way around, right? Restaurants projected 1.5 trillion in sales in 2025 and adding about 200,000 employees, right? What does that mean? The economy is good, right? I mean, restaurants are seeing increased revenues. They're seeing a need to add staff, and the restaurant, according to the National Restaurant Association, 1.5 trillion in sales and adding 200,000. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying that you have to use each one. What I'm doing there is just giving you an idea of what's out there, right? And you can do your own research, right? You can look at the information yourselves to determine how healthy is the economy, how much money is in the economy, right? Construction, right? Depending on people buying homes or you do residential, residential and commercial, and commercial the same thing. What happened to the commercial real estate industry during COVID? Crashed, right? Nobody was going into the office. Nothing was being built. I remember during the housing crisis, I was living in Duluth, 2 strip malls were built, constructed like before the housing market crashed. They sat there empty, totally, completely empty for like about 4 or 5 years, that long. Now they're filled in. But again, the demand wasn't there, right? So these things we definitely have to look at, and we have to be a student of business as entrepreneurs, right? Any questions before I move forward? Everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Somebody did have a question.
Sure.
And it was related to, I think I saw at the bottom of here, it said, the question was, will the minority designation still be relevant on the federal level given the current climate?
Let me get to that. When I get to that slide,
We're coming to that.
we're coming to that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
So for right now, funding opportunities, access to capital outlook for 2025, federal funding. We really have to see where we're going with federal funding. As we see what's going on in the federal government right now, and funding opportunities and agencies that are being, overhauled, we have to really see what's going on with federal funding and how that will impact the funding coming to businesses, right? The Recovery Act, PPP, EIDL really helped a lot of businesses and helped them with the operations. But we really have to see what's happening with the federal government. Minority funding with by terminating the DEI programs, that impacts, those who are classified under the DEI profile, right? So we really have to see what's available there. State funding, you would normally contact the SBA, SBDC's Small Business Development Center. County and city, depending upon the county you live in and the city, the municipality you live in, some of those counties and cities may have funding for small businesses, some programs for small businesses. Private funding coming from angel investors, private organizations. You may be able to get some funding there, but a lot of those private funding organizations are funded by, the federal agencies, and sometimes you may have, rich donors who donate to those agencies, but you really have to identify what those are. Banks, of course, with banks are not lender friendly to startups. They're not even lender friendly to some existing businesses if you can't show the monthly revenue that you're looking for, right? So you really got to look at that criteria to determine if a bank, doesn't mean that you can't do a business plan and take it to a bank and understand what they're looking for as far as their revenue profile. How much revenue are you looking for? Three consecutive months of revenue, 1 quarter, 2 quarters. How much revenue do you expect me to generate in order for me to be a candidate, right? To be considered a candidate for loans from your bank, right? What I did here is I included a QR code. I want all of you to scan it. From the Small Business Development Center here on Sever Road in Lawrenceville, right? Finding the financing fit for your business, right? Construction, real estate, whatever your business is, mobile bar, mentoring, right? If you're looking for access to capital, you're looking to understand the type of funding that's fit for your business model, scan this QR code. This finding the financing fit for your business is scheduled by the Small Business Development Center on Friday, April the 4th. It's a webinar, right? So that means you don't have to show up in person, and it's at zero cost, right? So you can sit in the comfort of your home in your PJs or however you want to do it, and it doesn't cost you anything. And like I tell people, take advantage of free. Take advantage of free, all right? Some people think if it's free, it doesn't have value. No, it holds a lot of value, right? Sometimes you can pay an exorbitant amount for something and still not get the value you expect, right? But take advantage of free, and especially it's a webinar. So it doesn't cost you anything other than time, right? And then you get some great information from the Small Business Development Center on finding the right financing to fit your business. All right? Everybody scan that? Everybody got that?
Yes.
All right. We can always come back to it later. All right, so minority contracting, right? So your minority business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise, women business enterprise or organization, veterans business enterprise or veteran business organization. You have your 8A certification hub zone, state minority contracting. All of that is being impacted by the rollback of DEI programs and initiatives, right? So a lot of these federal funding for DEI programs, anything DEI, right, has been terminated, okay? In some organizations, private organizations, if they are not following the administration and rolling back their DEI initiatives, you may have a chance there. For instance, I have a friend who was a minority contractor. She's a woman business enterprise, right? She's a woman business enterprise. She's a veteran, right, from the U.S. Army. She had a great, lucrative contract with Amazon, right? She was doing Amazon delivery out of North Carolina, okay? When Amazon rolled back their DEI initiatives, that canceled all opportunities for her as a woman business enterprise, as a veteran, right? And as a woman of color. So that eliminated all of that. I have real talk with people on this subject because this is what's impacting, right? So if you are looking at an opportunity, I'm not saying that you have zero opportunities as a minority contractor. You just have to look for organizations that have not rolled back DEI programs for their organization. If they're still hiring or contracting with those classified as disadvantaged businesses, you have a chance there, right? But right now, we're seeing a tremendous rollback. Now, the Georgia Minority Supplier Diversity Council has all the information you need, right? This QR code, by scanning it, will take you to the Georgia Department of Economic Development. Scan that one too, if you're interested in minority contracting and having contracts with municipalities, with the counties, with federal government, state government. Go ahead and scan that, okay? I'm a new MBE, I'm a new minority business enterprise, meaning I can contract with different, as a minority, contract with different organizations and corporations, right? I have to see which company, if I'm looking at, Jackson Financing, right? Just throw it out there hypothetically, and I'm looking at it, but if they have not participated in the rollback of DEI programs, I can apply for their supplier diversity program because so far, that company has not rolled back their DEI initiatives, right? This is great for added revenue, right? When we're talking about everything I speak about today is how to drive revenue for your business, right? This is added revenue for businesses who are not certified because companies would look at you more if you fit the profile, and that would open you up now to a whole pool of opportunities, right? So definitely, if you're considering it, look into it, scan the information, and information is bliss, man, Whether you can or cannot, whether you're interested now or not interested now, still pursue it because it's a great way to add revenue to your revenue stream to your business. All right? Okay. So right now, the top 5 trends for small businesses in 2025. E-commerce is one. Everybody's going digital. Everybody's going digital as much as possible, right? We're seeing demand for products and services on digital platforms now more so than we've ever seen before. So retail outlets, restaurants, you can now order on a restaurant's website. You can buy products, goods, and services online. So the e-commerce platform is really popular right now. Online digital marketing, whether you're using LinkedIn, whether you're using YouTube, Facebook marketing, whatever, online digital marketing, using email marketing platforms like Constant Contact, MailChimp, and so on and so forth. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. when you're marketing, you have traditional marketing, you have digital marketing. Digital marketing is more infectious because once you have a robust social media plan, marketing plan, and a good website with all your statistics and everything, your data, you can actually look at data to determine who's looking at your website, who's following you, how many people are following you, at what times of the day you see the traffic following you, how many times are they clicking through your website, and they staying on the homepage, or they clicking through, all of that, right? Digitally marketing yourself, marketing your brand. You're the brand, who's the brand ambassador? You're the brand ambassador, you understand that, right? Really a good thing. Artificial intelligence, right? ChatGPT has really helped a lot of people out in creating material, right? If sometimes, I mean, even me, I get brain block sometimes, and you put in a statement in the ChatGPT or whatever artificial intelligence software you're using, and sometimes it will help you in crafting the wording that you're looking for, right? It took me a while, to really get on board with that, but I'm seeing the benefits of it now, right? Artificial intelligence also help with marketing. Let me tell you something, the algorithms that these AI platforms access and utilize is phenomenal, right? Because they can search information, research information much faster than you, right? Going on to whatever marketing or research software you're using, the AI system could really help in helping you find the marketing data and the information that you need. So a lot of organizations are using artificial intelligence now to help with marketing and help with writing material, okay? Data and cybersecurity, as we become more digitized, as we put ourselves more online, put our businesses online, data and cybersecurity are very important, right? Your sensitive data. If you're an accountant or a financial advisor or even in real estate, you're holding people's sensitive information, right? You have people's social security numbers, you have bank account numbers, and even if for your own business, right, you have sensitive information, all right? So people are investing more in data and cybersecurity. Customer relations management, customer service, and the customer experience. When we talk about driving revenue, as you can see by the red asterisk, creating loyal and committed customers who love doing business with you, who appreciate the value you bring to them, are the lowest cost of marketing, right? Because it costs less to market to a committed and loyal customer than it does to try and get new customers, right? I worked in sales for almost 7 years as a business development manager. I understand the work you gotta put in, right? Low-hanging fruit is great, right? But you always gotta keep adding and getting new customers, right? But while you're looking for those new customers, you gotta keep the lights on. You gotta pay the rent, right? You gotta have working capital, right? To continue to reinvest back into the business, and that's where your committed and loyal customers come from. So more companies, more small businesses investing in a CRM system for customers, for the customer service experience, right? And this came from the Small Business Administration Center, right? And again, what I have here in the red asterisk is all revenue driven, right? Your e-commerce, right? Online digital marketing, artificial intelligence, your CRM system, right? All working to help drive revenue, more revenue for your company, okay? All right. So just some small business activity. U.S. Total annual small business applications. The number of Americans applying for small businesses, we see the trend, right? We see 5.5 million in, 2023, right? 2023, 5.4 million in 2021, right? As you can see, 2015 versus 2023, 2015 versus 2023, we see the trending upwards, right? More people are encouraged to start small businesses. More people are encouraged to launch small businesses, all right? There's the opportunities are there. This is a small business friendly country, right? Because again, small businesses drive the U.S. economy. They're the leading job creator in this country, all right? So we're seeing great activity there as far as the number of applications filed by entrepreneurs to start businesses, okay? And that's from the Commerce Institute and the U.S. Census Bureau, all right? So you're in good company. You're in good company. Some of you have already launched. You've already started your businesses. You're running your businesses. Now you just want to be able to determine, how do I run it more efficiently, more profitably, and where do I need to streamline, right, to see the revenue growth and the business growth, overall business growth. Look, all right. So that part was how you look at the economy, how you use the economy to determine the economic health, right, of the U.S., of the United States, right, to determine now, okay, this is how I am going to plan. When I do my P&L, I do my pro forma, when I'm projecting my revenues for the year, right, I now have great information I can go off of. Based on the health of the economy, maybe I need to scale back my numbers. Maybe I need to reduce my numbers a little bit. Purchasing power is not as high as I thought it would. We are expecting more layoffs, more unemployed people in the marketplace, right? We might see a reduction in GDP. We might see a slowdown in manufacturing, right? So all of these things you're using, retail sales, we might see a reduction in retail sales, which means that people are not spending as much because they don't have the access to discretionary income, right? That's on the personal level. As a business, if you're doing B2B engagement, you're a business selling to a business, maybe that business doesn't have the added access to capital, right, to really purchase from you. So now you're looking at what businesses can buy from you, right? What we're looking at is goal setting here. What is your focus for 2025, right? What is your focus for 2025? As a business owner, what is my focus for 2025? What am I focused on, right? My recommendation is to set approximately 5 to 7 top SMART goals, right? SMART goals, because we want your goals to be quantitative, right? Specific, goals must be specific, right? They must be measurable, they must be attainable, they must be realistic, and time specific, okay? Now, if you are, let's say for instance, if you operate a transportation business and you are doing pickup and drop-offs, and let's say you have an opportunity to experience an increased volume in load, but you only have small vans, right? And your goal is to increase revenue with your transportation business, realistically, you might not be able to meet those goals because you don't have the 18-wheeler that will help you achieve those goals, right? Because you're doing it with smaller vans, right? So you have to look realistically at these things, right? Can you attain them, right? Are your goals attainable? Can I reach them, right? Are they specific, right? Goals must be specific and to the point, right? And time sensitive, time specific, meaning now you can track your goals, right? And I'll show you some examples, right? So I won't get ahead of myself. So what I would say is, coming into 2025, you may have had goals. If you're an existing business, you may have had goals that you set in 2024. And look, I've got goals that I set in 2024 I did not achieve. So some of those goals become 2025 goals, right? So you can roll those goals over and to be accomplished in 2025, right? But you got to look at the goals. But if you talk about the vision, the GE quote, the quote by Jack Welch, right? Entrepreneurs, business people are visionary, right? But what's backing that vision, right? Are the goals that you're going to set to help guide you in 2020. Because if you don't have goals set, you'll just be going through 2025 like this. 2025 like this. All right, that's how you're gonna go through 2025, not knowing where you're going, right? It's like trying to operate a business without a business plan, right? So you gotta be able to make sure you have those goals identified and set for 2025. All right, so examples of some goals. Let's take a swig. Okay. All right, so examples of goals to set in 2025. You might say, okay, so what goals can I set in 2025? Where can I start? All right, here's some examples. Customer recruitment and retention, right? Develop that CRM system. If you are operating a business without having any sort of organization on how you're collecting data from those who are doing business with you, or you just don't have a system of effectively reaching your customers after they spend money with you, because a customer interaction should never be just a one-off thing. It should never be a one and done. You always want people, regardless if you are an independent, if you are a service provider, or if you're selling a product, right? You always want people to come back to you and do business with you, right? Average 5 to 6 new paid clients per quarter, right? That could be a goal. I want to average 5 to 6 new paid clients per quarter, right? What's going to drive that? Marketing is going to drive that, right? Because in order to add customers and clients to your business, you got to market to them, right? We're going to come to that. Resources. You might need to add new resources for your business, right? Instead of using Excel spreadsheets, you might say, I am finally going to get QuickBooks. I am going to organize my finances. I am going to make sure now I can do all my invoicing with QuickBooks. I can spit out my P&L. I can spit out my balance sheet. I can spit out my cash flow statement. I can look at break-even analysis. Anything that anybody asks for by quarter, by month, all I have to do is set the features and boom, I can spit it out. Makes you more efficient, right? Your operations, there might be some software in the real estate industry. There might be software that helps you now identify clients for your retail business more efficiently. Markets now that are more lucrative, where you're helping business owners get commercial real estate properties, or individuals get residential real estate properties, right? How do you make construction more efficient? There's software, even for me as a consultant, right? In my research, right? We were talking about that when we first started, right? Different types of software that helps you do the research and get the information, right? New or upgraded technology. It could be a computer, it could be your network system, it could be your POS, point of sale system, your transaction system, whatever it is, right? Staffing and headcount, right? Staffing, having those qualified people, right? I am thinking of adding a new staff this year, or 2 new staffs this year. So you're looking at adding staff to your business because you're seeing demand for your services, and you just can't do it with who you have. So now you gotta add staff, right? Outsourcing, right? I just can't do everything myself. I just don't have the skill sets to do everything myself. So I am going to outsource, like I do, right? I would love to sit down and do my own website. Sometimes I do my own editing, but I have to outsource that, right? Sometimes I can do finance. I'm a financial analyst. I can do projections up and down, do a P&L with my eyes closed. But when it comes to utilizing the balance sheets and cash flow statement, I like to have a CPA look at those numbers, right? Because that's more CPA specific, right? That's more accounting specific, right? Equipment, right? You may have equipment that, hey, I got to add resources, right? If you run a janitorial business and your equipment you have just does not help you meet the expectations of the customer of a manufacturing plant, but the equipment you have is good for a residential business, but you want to take on manufacturing plant contracts, you might need to update and upgrade your equipment, right? Operations, scale back on or scale up, right? You may need to scale back. I don't have the working capital I need, so I need to scale back on my operations. Or, hey, now I have the working capital, I see opportunities in the marketplace, now I need to scale up, right? Adding new revenue streams. Again, I see an opportunity to add a new service or add a new product line that's going to bring in more revenue for the company, right? Expansion and training, right? So some examples of goals, right? Revenue, monthly, quarterly revenue goals, right? I am seeing 20,000 this quarter. By the end of first quarter, I'm seeing $20,000. By the end of Q2, the end of the second quarter, I want to realize $30,000, right? By the end of third quarter, right? So you're hitting that monthly and quarterly revenue goals. The net profits, same thing, right? If you want to hit your net profits goals, you got to increase revenues while trying to minimize and streamline your expenses, right? Because the higher your expenses, that's gonna cut into your net profits, right? So you gotta try and maximize revenue. Your cost of goods sold, which is the cost of producing a product or producing a service, right? You gotta minimize those costs as well, because that helps with your gross profit margin, right? So we're gonna get to that when we get to the financials, okay? Ad releases, marketing, right? Ad releases, right? The frequency and the scheduling of that, right? We're gonna see the more you invest in marketing, it's the more leads you're gonna generate for your business, okay? I got a slide for that, right? I got a slide for that, right? I got a slide for that in adding in ad releases, right? I'm like Steve Jobs. Remember when Steve Jobs used to stand up there in his black turtleneck sweater, and he used to talk about Apple, right? And then people would ask him a question. He's like, "Hey, I got an app for that. I've got an app for that, right? I got a slide for that, right?" So social media campaigns, the frequency, meaning how often are you doing your social media posts? How often are you posting, right? A lot of you tweet on Twitter. A lot of people on Instagram. I love YouTube. I use YouTube predominantly more than I use TikTok, right? I like YouTube videos, right? I would speak on a topic, or like this video that I'm recording, that's going to go on YouTube. It's going to go to my video editor. Once we get it edited and looking nice, put it on YouTube, right? That's a form of marketing. That's a form of reaching people. If you're in the construction space, you can talk about something concerning construction, right? Homes, commercial spaces, right? Why someone would want to look at investing in commercial spaces, or so on and so forth. You find a catchy topic to speak about. You can use that. What's the name of your company?
Moserism.
Pardon?
Moserism.
Moserism. Oh, Moserism. Moserism can become an industry expert in the construction space, right? Miss Nancy, you may want to talk about real estate, right? What's the happening trend in real estate, right? You can become a subject matter expert, and you increase the frequency of these videos based on a topic, right? People will start following you. Once people start following you, those are leads that you're creating. The brand ambassador, right? Same thing, right? Alcohol. I point out like, where'd she go? Mobile alcohol sales, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that you can do and make a video out of, right? Budgeting, right? The return on investment from marketing, cost of marketing. I gotta watch the time. AI for marketing again. Monthly and quarterly sales goals, right? Your leads and win ratios, right? So you got to look at creating goals to set our targets. Okay. Everybody good? Anybody good on that? Everybody good on that? All right, good. All right, so streamlining your operations, eliminating waste and redundancy. Okay. So waste and redundancy can lead to unnecessary spending and added expenses. All right. I did a tour of duty for 6 months with a shipping company in Lithonia, Stonecrest, helping them reduce waste in their warehouse. I did an entire floor plan looking at all their inflows and outflows, all the shipping and receiving, and determining where they can cut back on waste, right? Operational efficiency to realize greater revenue, right? How do you make your business more efficient, okay? Reduce redundancy in personnel functions to realize greater revenue. Don't have 2 or 3 people doing the same thing. To have 2 or 3 people doing the same thing, right? That's 3 different salaries, and you might not even be getting the end result that you're looking for, right? So you might be able to do everything with 1 person or with 2 people, but or different functions, right? Be able to streamline that, okay? Invest in software that expedites a process to realize greater revenue, okay? Revisit your standard operating procedures, okay? Or create your standing operating procedures. If you don't have SOPs, right, this is part of your operational plan. Remember I said in the beginning, there are several different plans, and your operation plan is one of them. You want to be able to look at your SOPs, right? Your standard operating procedures. How do you roll out your processes? How do you move from one step to the next step, right? It's a recording, a documentation of steps. and the process that you go through in order to make sure that you are efficient, okay? To optimize business processes to realize greater revenue, okay? Streamline purchases and expenses to realize greater revenue, right? Manage your working capital, right? And manage your expenses, making sure that you keep expenses to absolutely what you need and you're not overspending, all right? And again, all of this helps you drive revenue. All this helps you uncover revenue slippage, as I call it, right? So you can maximize and realize more revenue in your business, in your operations, okay? All right. Networking, grow your presence and brand, right? Build your leads, okay? Build your lead. We're gonna get into what a lead is in a minute. Attend events in person. Preferred. There's nothing like looking somebody in the eye, shaking a hand. How you doing? My name is Austin. You're Jack, nice to meet you. Look at somebody in the hand. People do business more with people what?
They need a person.
That they know and trust. That they know and trust. That they know, right? I don't know you if you're on virtually, or if you're attending a virtual event. I just see a square with your head and a nice background, right? But people do business with, if you shake hands, firmly, you look somebody in the eye, you get to know somebody, they're gonna more likely want to do business with you, they trust you more, right? So preferred, attend businesses in person. Attend business, if you can't do it virtually, in person, do it virtually, right? And create a funnel, right? We're gonna go into what a funnel is, right? I got a slide for that. Doing my Steve Jobs bit. All right, so now grow your CRM, your customer relations management. Again, all of this is leading you to revenue growth, all right? How to grow revenue, strategies for revenue growth in 2025, okay? So your initial contact, right? An initial contact could come from a networking event. Some of you who meet each other here today, you might do business with each other, right? You attend an event, right? Anybody who comes in through your email marketing, right, that signs up for your newsletter or signs up or subscribes to your online marketing, right? People who may call you, do a cold call and call into your business to find out more about your operations and business, right? That's an initial contact, right? From that initial contact, you do a follow-up, right? You get the information, you do the follow-up. Now we're looking at the sales pipeline to revenue growth, right? We're looking at the pipeline to revenue growth, right? This right here is a process. We're looking at a process, right? So you may have this in your SOPs, right? What is my process for revenue growth? Streamlining my sales pipeline, right?
We lost it for a
Oh,
second.
that's okay.
You're coming back.
That's all right. Technology, boy, I tell you. Sometimes. So from that, you do your follow-up, right? From your follow-up, you're creating your initial conversation. The end just got, he wanted his own line, So you got your initial conversation. From your initial conversation, the person who you're targeting to do business with, they say, hey, well, send me a proposal. Send me a proposal. Send me something with numbers. Let me know what your costs are, right? From that, now you have a follow-up conversation. Again, with the end. All right, so you have the follow-up conversation, right? So the person might say, okay, I like your proposal. Let's talk about it, right? So you have the follow-up conversation. Never leave it, never say, I had to learn that early in sales, right? Just don't send proposals or quotes and then leave it to the prospect to call back. My manager got on me that early in my sales call. What are you doing? Follow up. Yes, sir. So follow up, right? Because you don't want to leave them hanging so that a competitor gets them, right? So make sure you follow up in the conversation. Revisit the proposal. I like your proposal. It's about $15,000 for the job. Right now I'm budgeted, my budget can really handle about $13,000, right? Can you cut $2,000 off of it? Let me think about it. You might say yes right away, right? But you want to be realistic, right? You say, okay, you know what? Let's take $2,000 off of it, right? Or it might go, well, I like the services you're offering, but what about this? Do you offer this? Oh, yes, I do, right? And that's selling up, right? You're selling up. Well, I'll add this to the proposal. I'll add this to the quote. Boom, right? You have your follow-up conversation, right? You revisit the proposal. Now you finalize the proposal, confirm the deal, right? do I have your business? Do I have your business? Can we do business together, right? The prospect says, yes, let's do business, right? That's my favorite part of the whole sales pipeline. Yes, Austin, yes. Okay, so confirm the deal and then secure the new client, right? So when you get like halfway through here, you're preparing for here, right? Because at this point, now you're already building that person into your CRM system, right? Because that person now is going to do business with you. What happens if they don't do business with you? What if they tell you no? You go back to them at a later time. They might not be ready to do, look, when I did that job at the shipping company, it took 4 years for me to get a yes. But I was persistent. I was like, please, you know. But I got the yes, right? I finally got the yes, right? So you're building your CRM system, you're growing your sales pipeline. But once you secure that client, now you want to work to have that person be committed and loyal to your business. So that person will always do business with you, right? Not only that, they'll refer someone to you. Okay? All right. So here's the sales pipeline. You talk about your leads, your initial contact, that's a lead, right? Depending upon how you got that initial contact, right? And you work through your sales pipeline. Realize up to 30% more revenue with a robust CRM system. Salesforce. Everybody know Salesforce, right? The sales software company, right? That helps you do helps you build that CRM system, your marketing, your sales, and help you really, streamline that entire operation. So Salesforce says, hey, you realize 30% more revenue with a robust CRM system. And normally, typically, your marketing budget and cost should be about 10% of net profit, all right? Or you can dedicate about 10% of your revenue, reinvest that back into marketing, right? Because you always want to be marketing. You always want to be marketing. You always want to keep yourself visible and exposed in the marketplace, all right? Okay, that's how we got it, all right. Okay, so examples of new contacts. Remember we looked at new contact, what a new contact is, right? Examples of new contact, replies from social media sites, right? Somebody goes to Instagram, they might contact you or reach you through Instagram. They might reply or make a comment on your YouTube video, right? And say, hey, I want you to get in contact with me. I like the information you posted on your YouTube channel. You might reach them through Facebook Marketplace, right? They might say, hey, I want to reach out to you. Plus all your information, all your contact information is there, right? Replies from email marketing, right? If you're using MailChimp or you're using Constant Contact, you have information to reach you, right? They like the information you post. Every time you get a new contact, not a new client, because even if they don't do business with you, you want to add them to your mailing list. So you just keep, as you send out your posts, you keep including those individuals who haven't done business with you, including with those who are doing business with you, right? Revenue growth, revenue opportunities, okay? Exchange business cards, right? At a meeting or event, okay? Incoming random inquiries. Hey, I'm picking up the phone. I heard about this shipping company. I think I need something shipped. Let me call them. An inquiry is a lead. All right. So if they're calling you, they're calling for real estate information, or they want to buy a house, they're looking to buy something commercial, they're calling you. They want to understand about branding, they're calling you, or they're contacting you on any one of your social media sites, right? That's a lead, it's a contact, right? Again, whether they do business with you or not, it's an opportunity, right? So you got to capture that information, all right? Outgoing cold calls. You might make outgoing cold calls yourself, all right? Referrals, and you may use mailers, right? And on your mailers, you send out to maybe 100 businesses in your community, 1,000 businesses, so on and so forth, and you have all of your contact information on there. Everything you do, strategizing for 2025 or going forward, should be revenue focused. Should be focused on how can I drive this process, this initiative, to bring in revenue to my business, okay? All right. All right, so here's the funnel I was telling you about, right? So funnel is just like narrowing down to create an output of actual clients that's going to do business with you, right? So we see the input of leads, right? So the concept is, let's say within a month, you got 1,000 contacts, right? I should actually change that from business cards to contact, because business cards are not the only way you make a contact, right? So you got 1,000 contacts, right? Within that first month, right? That's the total leads acquired in that period, that month, right? I want y'all to take a picture of this, because you use this in your business, right? So out of 1,000 contacts for that month, you qualified 650 of them that can possibly be a client for you, right? That can possibly be a client for you, right? So you're totally qualified. You have confirmed that these are going to be my target. They fit my target profile, right? Out of that 650 leads, you send out proposals to 225 of them, because out of that 650, 225 seem that they're ready because they asked you to send a proposal, right? From that 650 that you qualified as targets, 225 of them say, hey, send me a proposal, send me a letter, send me something. Let me know what you're offering me, right? Out of that 225, right, as you see, the funnel, we're narrowing it down, right? We're narrowing it down to be more focused on those clients and those businesses that are going to do, that's going to give us money, do business with us, right? So we got 50 clients out of 225 quotes, 50 clients, 50 prospects said, I am ready to sign this proposal, sign this quote, we're going to do business together, right? So this is how you work the funnel process, okay? The output is now you're going to generate revenue from 50 new clients. So you're adding, in that month, you're adding 50 new clients. It could be a month, it could be a quarter, it could be half a year. You determine the period, right? But you want to understand how you're going to qualify, how you're going to turn leads into paying clients, into paying customers, right? Because you want to be able to get the client and generate the revenue, all right? Because you got a business to operate. Okay? Everybody got that?
Yes.
All right. So again, new contacts equal leads. Okay? Leads are anybody that can do business with you, right? That you can convert into a client. But what you got to do first, what you got to do?
Qualify them.
You got to qualify them, right? Because not everybody is fit for your business or fit for your service. Not everybody's fit for mine. Somebody might want me to manage their, their accounting system. I manage accounting system, so you won't be a client of mine. But you want me to help you look at your P&L and determine what your projected revenues and expenses are going to be throughout the year, and do the pro forma, do the financial analysis. Yes, then you're the client for me, right? Okay. All right, collaborations. And again, outsourcing. There are times when we might not have the expertise all to ourselves, right? We would want to collaborate with someone or other individuals who have the skill sets that we don't have, right? We're going to talk about the SWOT analysis in a minute. I love the SWOT analysis. I go through this with new clients, especially clients who bring me into the business to really help them with the operations, right? So identify peers you can work with who are trustworthy and reliable. Just like not everybody can be a client, not everybody can be a collaborator, okay? You can't collaborate with everybody, right? You can't do business with everybody. So identify peers you can work with who are trustworthy and reliable to my people in the virtual world, all right? I don't want to leave you all out, okay? Grow and build healthy partnerships, right? Grow and build healthy partnerships. This year, like I said, I'm doing my own strategy plan this year, right? Within the 15 years that I've been an independent consultant, this is the year of collaborations and growing partnerships for Austin Thompson and Thompson Management Consulting. Because there are things that I want to do, but I know there are people with other expertise that I can build partnerships with, and we can hold hands and walk together, right? All right. Outsourcing and subcontracting, right? You want to outsource or subcontract, again, for those expertise, those skill sets that you really don't, you have an understanding of it, but hey, you want to really outsource that to somebody who can do it better than you, right? Contracting, subcontracting, right? All right. All right, establish your basic financials. Basic financials, like your sales projections, right? How many sales do you project based on your leads and contacts, right? The price points of the products and the services, what does the service cost versus how many targets you have, right, that you're selling to determine what's the value of your sales, right? Quarterly and monthly and quarterly, right? Your profit and loss, right? Your revenues, your cost of goods sold, gross profit margin, your expenses, your net profits, right? Understand your P&L, right? This is why an accounting software like QuickBooks or something, you can use Excel, and build your database, right? Understand your revenues, your expenses, cost of goods sold, which is great if you have raw materials, that you're converting raw materials into a finished product, right? If you're a manufacturing company, if you're a restaurant or something. If you're a service-based business, it's basically what is contributing to that revenue, right? Like marketing could be, that's a service, right? Administrative costs, right? Which would make up your cost of goods sold, which equals your gross profit margin. And from your gross profit margin now, you subtract that from your expenses in order to get your net profits, right? Your balance sheets, right? Looking at assets and liabilities, right? What assets? Assets are resources you own, right? That can be converted to cash, right? Liabilities, those things you owe. Accounts payables and receivables, right? What you owe, what you are paying, and what you owe. I mean, what's owed to you, right? The one thing I did with one of my clients, we sat down and we looked at her accounts receivables, right? They were operating on a net 60 most of the time, right? Which is revenue come due in 2 months, right? In 60 days, right? I was telling them, let's try to get down to 45 days. Then we can work to get down to 30 days. Because you really want to be working on net 30, right? You really want people to pay you because why? You got to pay somebody, right? You have expenses, right? You have businesses that you owe money to. So the faster and the more you can get your money in, once you realize those receivables, right, you can pay your bills. Not only that, that goes to your bottom line too, right? Because that's revenue that's being held out there. If you don't collect that revenue, right, you got to get that in, right? So you got to collect that, right? Okay. So your current cash, right? Cash that can be converted. You got your current cash. You have access to to the cash for your business, right? You have what's called short-term assets. Also, if you're looking at the balance sheet, short-term assets are assets that you can convert to cash in under a year, right? So let's say, for instance, you need cash for your business, right? You need working capital, right? Oh my God, I need about $25,000. I got staff I gotta pay. I got my suppliers I gotta pay. I got operations I gotta pay. You may have assets in your business, right? That with under a year you can convert that to cash in order to pay, right? Your suppliers, right? Pay your payroll, right? Meet your payroll. That you don't have to go to a bank and take out debt that you have to pay for, amortized over X number of years, right? That you got to pay back, right? So you can look at your assets. You may want to sell a vehicle, sell 2 vehicles, right? Instead of having them sitting around, right? You may have some technology you can sell, right? Some machinery, whatever, right? Be able to look at that, okay? Your cash flow statement, be able to manage your cash, the cash flowing through, right? The business. The cash flow statement will tell you exactly how much cash you have on hand after all those expenses are cleared, right? It will give you a more accurate picture of your cash position that your P&L and balance sheet don't give you, right? So make sure you get your cash flow statement then. And then your annual budget. Always do an annual budget. Do a budget for 2025, right? And a budget is a mere plan for how you're going to spend money, right? Put a budget together. Again, if you don't have any elaborate software, use Excel. Excel is my best friend, all right? So use Excel. And of course, your break even, your fixed costs divided by your selling price per unit, and minus your variable cost per unit, okay? Fixed costs like rent, like salaries, right? Even if you pay yourself a salary, right? That's an example. Those are examples of fixed costs. Your selling price per unit. What is the price per unit, of operation? If you're a service business, determine how much of your service you have to spend in order to, break even and make a profit from the expenses that you have, right? It's a lot different from if you're manufacturing or if you have cost of goods sold. If you're converting raw materials to a finished product, right? And then your variable costs, right? Which is utilities and and so on and so forth. All right. So definitely understand your break even as well. All right. Okay. I want to make sure we stay on task. We got about 15 minutes. I got a few more slides. I think I can do it. All right. So KPIs, key performance indicators. How is my business performing? Right? Or how do I want my business to perform? All right. Again, this is all leading to driving greater revenue for your business, right? What am I going to look at to determine the performance of my business? Examples of key performance indicators: monthly or quarterly revenue targets. Are my revenue targets, am I meeting my revenue targets? Am I exceeding my revenue targets per month or quarterly, right? So that will be determined, right? Is it increasing? I projected, if I'm using revenue as a key performance indicator, if I'm projecting 20,000 by the end of Q1, but I only gross 15,000 in revenue, I fell short by 5,000, right? So if I'm projecting 30,000 for Q2, I've got to add that 5,000 to Q2 and make it $35,000, right? Because I got to account for that $5,000 drop off from Q1, right? So a key performance indicator, revenue. A lot of businesses use revenue as a KPI, right? Your return on investment on marketing campaigns. Is my marketing campaign that awesome? And the money that I'm investing, right? The brand ambassador that I hired to make sure that my brand is being marketed to my target market, am I getting the leads that I'm expecting? I said about 100 leads from this marketing campaign. Did I meet 100 within that month? Right? You set the number. I'm just using a hypothetical number, right? Am I generating the leads that I expect? Right? My revenue. Am I generating the revenue that I expect? Right? So revenue, you use leads, you can use revenue, you can use total net profits, right? As long as you're managing your expenses, right? If you're seeing net profits increasing or revenue increasing, you're managing those expenses, your net profits would be a key performance indicator, right? Because it's a key indicator of how your business is performing, right? One of them, not the only one, right? Number of new clients secured each month from sales. You're selling, right, to your client. You're marketing to your client, right? The thing about marketing and sales, people think it's all in one, but it's not, right? You have to market before you get the sale. The market has to know you exist. They have to know that you have a valuable product or service to purchase, right? That could create the sale, right? So you got the lead, then you market to the lead, then you make the sale, right? So the number of new clients each month from sales, if you see the number of new clients increasing, then your business is performing well, right? You're performing in that aspect of generating new clients for your business, right? Your cash balance in the bank, right? Your receivables. You're seeing more cash in the bank, right? When you're seeing more cash in the bank, that means now you're clearing all your expenses, you're generating more revenue, you're able to make your payments, right? You're able to realize more cash in the bank, right? Payables. If you could pay your bills on time, just as you expect people to pay you in 30 days, you're able to pay your suppliers and your who you owe money to in 30 days, right? So again, these are some of the examples of how you can determine if your business is performing well or not, right? KPIs, right? So as you do your strategy plan for 2025, or if you have not included in the plan you already started, include KPIs, right? Because you want to be able to track that performance. track that revenue, track those sales, track those leads, right? Am I attending enough events? Am I really marketing my business well enough to attract those leads, get those new contacts that you can convert to revenue, right? We saw the sales funnel, right? We want to be able to convert those contacts to actual paying clients, right? The SWOT analysis, right? I love SWOT because you're looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of your business, all right? A lot of folks they find it so easy to identify strengths, but the weaknesses, what am I weak at? What am I weak at? I have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. We have to be honest about that. Let me tell you something. You can unearth a whole lot of revenue potential by looking at your weaknesses, right? Because one thing about SWOT, you do it for your business, right? But you also look at the strengths or weaknesses of your competitors, right? So the things that you do that you're not really good at, again, that's where that outsourcing comes in. That's where getting those new resources coming in, right? Getting those new resources, looking at ways in which you can grow your business, you can become more competitive in the marketplace. You can convert those weaknesses to strengths, right? And add to those strengths. Now, the things you're good at, whether it's operations, whether you have the most competitive software, you have the more competitive and academically inclined staff members, and so on and so forth, you continue adding the strengths. You continue adding strengths, right? Your strengths you can always become stronger, right? I always use the athlete, right? Athletes don't say, oh my God, I'm bench pressing 400 pounds, I can stop lifting weights now, because I'm strong. No, you go from 400 pounds, bench pressing 410, 420, next thing you know, you're bench pressing 500, because you're always trying to increase the strength of your physical, right? Same thing with your business. Always continue to do the exercise and strengthen the things that you consider that are already strengths, right? The opportunities, right? Opportunities are anything that can be capitalized on to be turned into a strength, right? New software, right? Like if you identify, okay, a weakness is I don't have the right HR software. I am targeting these companies. I am an HR company. I'm a recruiter. I recruit for businesses in the finance industry, right? But I don't have the right software to really make that connection between prospects and the company that I'm contracting with, right? That's a weakness. My competitors are using a more robust software, right? They're doing better with their engagement, right? And they're seeing great engagement and prospecting and making better connections with their prospects. I am not. An opportunity is here. I can do the research and find out what software they have out there, right? That I can now purchase for the company, right? So now I can have better engagement with the finance companies that I'm hiring for. It helps to increase the brand of my recruiting business, helps me looks more credible, right? Helps me operate more efficiently because now I can keep up with the competitor, all right? So do your SWOT analysis. I have sheets. Back there with the quadrant. Make sure you look at that. I also have a sheet for your CRM, your customer relations management. I have some examples that, please help me pass those out. You can look at some CRM software. There's some great examples that I looked at myself, and you can determine, what CRM systems you can get for your business based on the cost, based on your budget. Your SWOT, you can definitely document your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and the threat. A threat is anything that compromises your business success. A new competitor in the marketplace, right? Your competitor now buys a new piece of software, or your competitor now expands by buying out another company and adding resources to it. And you're still, managing your business, right? You may look at, let's say, for instance, if you are a manufacturer of solar panels, right? We use solar panels, right? You're a manufacturer of solar panels. The government says, we're going to offer tax credits to homeowners, right? We're going to offer tax credits to homeowners if they change to a more energy efficient systems by purchasing more solar panels, right? What does that do to the solar panel manufacturers, right? Goes up, business goes up, right? But what if the government says, oh, we're gonna cut tax credits to homeowners, or we're gonna remove the tax credits to homeowners? What does that do to the solar panel manufacturers?
It's gonna go down.
Businesses go down, right? So that's those are examples of external threats, right? Strengths and weaknesses are internal. You can affect that, right? In your SWOT analysis, right? And opportunities and threats are external, right? The external environment impacts the success of the business, right? I love going through a SWOT analysis with small businesses because we get into the strengths of the business, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. And we focus on the weaknesses, communication, lack of communication protocols, right? Not looking at SOPs, not adhering to SOPs, not following instructions, so on and so forth. These are weaknesses, right? We can convert those to strengths because if you're not following the SOPs, or if you're not communicating internally properly or communicating properly with the client, that's causing you revenue, right? So anywhere in the business where we see an infraction, where we see revenue slippage, it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid. We got to stop the slippage, right? We got to stop the leakage, right? So this contributor SWOT analysis is a great tool to help you with revenue growth, right? And here we go. So some strengths, some examples: expertise, equipment, the client roster that helps with your strengths. Your weaknesses, probably location. People are not finding you well. If you're a bricks and mortar, you don't have a digital presence, right? Your vehicles are a little bit outdated, especially if you're running a delivery service or if you're running a transportation service. You might want to look at getting newer vehicles. These are some weaknesses, right? There's area for growth there, right? Opportunities, new space becoming available, right? You might outgrow your space. The new space is too cramped, it's too condensed. You don't have room to really grow. You can't fit all your employees in there comfortably. So that is interfering with your production, with your output, right? Hiring a social media content creator, that's an opportunity, right? Getting somebody to help you with your branding, with your exposure. Securing financing for new vehicles, purchasing a new CRM system. These are examples of opportunities, right? Because they create the opportunity for you to generate more revenue for your business and operate more efficiently, right? And threats, new competitor within X miles, economic slowdown, tariffs, right? That's a big thing in the news now, right? Yeah. Because the importer, those fees are going to go up for that importer, right? What's the importer going to do?
The customer.
Put it back on the customer, right? So, like for those of you in the construction space, right? You're going to see cost of materials going up, right? Yeah. You're going to see cost of materials going up. Home buyers, right? You're going to see more values going up for homes because of the materials to build homes, right? So all of these things we got to look at. And unemployment, right? We're going to have to see what unemployment looks like in a couple of months, right? So those are threats, right? Compromising the this discretionary income in the industry, okay?
We did have a one-line question just as we're coming to the end. I want to just throw it out.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's saying is like if it's hard, at the beginning of your business, it's hard to get a starter loan or assistance, generating revenue basically without having starter loans or things like that when you first get started in a business. What are some suggestions for generating revenue at that point?
In a business, because in the very beginning, banks are not lender friendly. Banks do not lend to businesses that have no revenue activity, no revenue history, right? So the best thing to do is you can self-fund with 100% equity in the business. Or what you could do is find some people who would invest in your business, and those individuals are considered to be angel investors, and you can get them to help you with the seed money you need in order to get started, right? So you can look at some of those examples.
Thank you.
Right? I want to wrap up these next two slides really quick. Adding revenue streams to nonprofit, that's one example. Supplier diversity contracts. Collaboration or partnership, diversity business, adding new routes to a delivery business, added services and added products, right? These are some examples of adding revenue streams to your business, right? What assistance do you require? Do you require, right? Consultants, CPA, an attorney, web designer, brand ambassador, social media experts. Those will help you drive revenue. Mentors and coaches. You might need to add an admin, right? Maybe somebody who handles your emails, your calls, your contacts, so on and so forth. Customer service, marketing, social media, AI, accounting and bookkeeping, which really helps to streamline the finances and the way you're processing and recording financial data for the business. Okay. This one here is know your why, right? Know your why. Revisit your mission statement. Know your why. Why are you in business? Why are you doing what you're doing, right? It's from passion, but it's got to be more than just passion, and it's more than just having the ability to be independent and be free and make money, you know. But most people are in business because they love to serve, they love to, work with individuals, right? Know your why, know your mission. Why are you in business, right? What still drives you, or have you lost, or have you lost what originally motivated you, right? Has your vision become cloudy? I don't know. I thought I was heading here, but I'm really not. So clear your vision. Make sure that you understand your vision, right? Like the opening statement that we made, right? Has your mission changed? Has your purpose or your reason for being in business changed, right? A lot of people change mission. They revise their mission statements. It's customary, right? Especially when you're going through those strategic planning exercises, right? And develop your 2025 strategy plan to set your direction. All right? That's all part of knowing your why. And with that, what? I went over like 3 minutes.
Yay.
Still working to streamline, my presentations. But this is my contact information. That's my QR code to all my information there. I want to thank you all for being here today. I know as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we have big ideas, right? We have big ideas. We got a passion for growing business, right? But we also have to ride that roller coaster of up and down activity, right? But a great strategy plan, a great plan for how you're going to build out your strategy based on your goals and your mission and the vision will help you in 2025, all right? Because this is a very interesting year that we have come into. So we need to be vigilant. We need to pay attention to everything that's going on around us, all right? And with that,
thank you very much. And people online are saying this has been super beneficial, excellent class. Thank you. So thank you as well on behalf of the people that are participating online. Thank you. On behalf of everybody here in the room, we really appreciate it. And if you could stay after for a couple of minutes.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure folks will have some questions. Mm-hmm. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you will come back.
Yeah. And for those online, I'll submit to the Gwinnett Entrepreneur Center a feedback that we can do electronically. And for those in here today, I have some feedback forms. If you could kindly just fill out the feedback form. It's really short. It just lets me know how I'm doing, right? Whether I'm coming back or not, right? All right. So thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
By the way, that last slide you had up was phenomenal about the why.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
That's so important.
Because sometimes we get lost.
Yep, I absolutely love that. It's so important.
Sometimes we get lost, especially after 20.